The thrust basically is to remind people of this important day that was gazetted by the United Nations. And basically our theme this year is defending human rights and shaping our future through human rights defense and protection. And what we're trying to do is try to create awareness really to all citizens on the important role played by human rights defenders. The act of defending human rights is not a simple task. It's putting yourself at risk. And therefore, we want to create awareness and also recognize those human rights defenders that have played a very key role in protecting and promoting human rights in this country. So we'll have a big event on the 9th at Munyonyo where we shall recognize those human rights defenders who have done tremendous work in different parts of the country. That's in northern Uganda, central Uganda, western, and the West Nile region, including Karamoja. So they have been voted by their peers as the best. Their peers are the ones who voted for them, that this man or lady has done outstanding work in our region. And then we shall also have the overall winner who would consider the national, the one who will get the national award as a great human rights defender who has done tremendous work within that particular area. So it's a custom that we do every year to recognize these people and to encourage others. Because if you look at Chapter 4, there's a specific provision in our Constitution that obliges each citizen, including agencies of government and departments, to respect and uphold human rights. And if you do that, you qualify to be a human rights defender. Yes.
So by being able to position yourself as one that talks about the observance and calls for perpetrators to be brought to book, effectively you are a human rights defender.
Exactly.
But the need to act within a more organized setting is what puts you apart. Maybe. Let me stay with you very shortly before I come to Ms. Hope Bagota. The voting process, I'm looking at awards.
Yes, the awards.
In Munyonyo on the 9th of December.
Yes,
and you say they've been selected by peers.
Yes.
Haven't you given chance to the people who have benefited from their work to also vote?
They are also allowed to vote. It's because it's an online voting system. Okay. So if you really think that this person has really done tremendous work, you could also vote for him. Yes.
All right. Ms. Hope Bagota, as a senior human rights officer at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, you are effectively in the seat of government position, because the Uganda Human Rights Commission does observe, or rather offer direction, especially for the government to be able to observe the human rights of the citizens. What's your take on the current state of affairs?
Thank you very much. Currently, as Uganda, we're faring well in terms of human rights. Why would I say so? We are party to numerous treaties and obligations, and these give us obligations as a state. And the state has worked progressively to realizing these obligations. How has it done this? It has put in place institutions like the Uganda Human Rights Commission. It has put in place other government agencies, all that aim to see that human rights are respected and protected. And also, as a Uganda Human Rights Commission, we have continued to work very closely with human rights defenders, because we too are human rights defenders. And we believe very strongly on partnerships. We know that our mandate is very broad. We can't go at it alone. And also our mandate also does provide room for partnerships. And so we've worked tirelessly with the human rights defenders. And we also have like a human rights defenders desk where we encourage Ugandans to implement their obligation or their duty as citizens, because human rights come with obligations on both the state, which is the primary duty bearer, as well as citizens. And so all of us as Ugandans, we are always encouraged to respect human rights, and also to see that we do comply with the laws and also put in place in action the Constitution. So we work closely with the human rights defenders as well to see that human rights are realized. Because human rights are not just an idea somewhere. No. They are an obligation for all of us, and they are part of us. We are because human rights are. If our human rights are not respected, if they're violated, then all of us will feel the pinch. It's not one particular person.
That's right.
So the rally is for all of us as Ugandans to always work together to be human rights defenders, just like Bob has already alluded to, all of us, each one of us is a human rights defender.
That's right.
And advocates that rights are respected and hold our leaders, hold us as the Uganda Human Rights Commission accountable to see that we do what is required of us.
Okay, talking of holding the Uganda Human Rights Commission accountable, there are elements within society and Uganda at large who are concerned at the speed, the tone with which aspects of human rights observance and the pursuit of justice, especially for those whose rights have been violated, including human rights defenders themselves, is a bit slow. I do not know whether there is any reform package that you're undertaking, but please talk to us about what is being done to address those particular concerns, both from the people that human rights defenders help, but also human rights defenders themselves.
Thank you. What is being done is number one, we operate an open door policy. We always encourage Ugandans to lodge their complaints. There are numerous complaints on our toll-free lines, make use of our human rights defenders desk. And then next, the other thing that we're doing is continuously urge government to increase our funding, because for our courts to sit, our tribunals to sit, there's an element of funding. The same thing also happens in the judiciary. For court sessions to be held, there's an element of funding, there's an element of staffing. So we always advocate that we should have more funding to have the capital, the human resource, and also the other equipment that is needed. Then also we also encourage alternative dispute resolution.
Okay.
Things like mediation, things like reconciliation, where we do sit down with the different aggrieved parties and see how we can resolve matters amicably. Because like they say, indeed justice delayed is justice denied. Yes.
Yeah. So, Mr. Kirenga,
yes,
as a human rights defender, what is your average day like, and maybe your average workspace? What are those challenges particularly that make that endeavor a difficult one?
Thank you. So it keeps fluctuating depending on the season. As we approach an election,
Wow.
as we approach an election,
Yeah.
we're going to see the peak rise really in terms of human rights attacks on human rights defenders.
That's right.
So the society in which we operate or we live in is one which has not really appreciated the elements of accountability. That somebody can ask, because the normal duties of a state is really to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. So when you don't respect other people's rights, or you don't fulfill human rights, someone is bound to raise a flag. Now, there are many who are not comfortable with citizens raising a flag, and that's why you find this common question, who are you to ask this question now? That is the kind of situation we operate in.
Yeah.
Some citizens think that they should not be held accountable, and that's how you find those contradictions between human rights defenders and some state and non-state actors, because they feel that they should not be asked on what they're doing. But the obligations of citizens to rise up and demand for duty bearers to play their role. So when we are talking about issues of accountability, good governance, issues of corruption, issues of human rights abuses and violations, we are basically reminding someone of his duty to be able to account to the citizen. Now, that is where the clash comes in. So to answer your question, there are fluctuations. Some, right now, environmental human rights defenders working on the areas to do with extractives in Karamoja, in the Alberton region, have serious challenges. Those dealing with accountability, seeking for justice in terms of resources and how they are utilized, are facing them. As we go into an elections, those dealing with civil liberties,
We'll begin.
Freedom of expression, freedom of association, the right to peaceful assembly, you are going to see cases rise because some actors will not allow people to enjoy those fundamental rights of freedom, or will try to interfere with their enjoyment. And that's how the contradiction comes in and the clashes.
Let me stay with you, and this is, I hope you can put it in a minute. How do you help the various clusters of human rights defenders go about their job in what appears to be a change of baton at any one point in time? If it is election time, political rights violations increase, and then the political activists and human rights defenders are the ones on the front line. You speak about the extractives industry and those violations that go on there. So it means different sets of human rights defenders be interchanging frontline play, and it seems like there's a lot of coordination that is required, especially for your position as the ED National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. How do you effectively make their work easy?
So we have human rights defenders grouped in two clusters. Those working on environmental rights, those working on civil political rights, those working on socio-economic rights.
Yeah.
So depending on the cluster that is under threat or attack, first of all, we do the monitoring, and then you document. Because each time you're even going to do advocacy, it must be based on evidence.
Yeah.
Even if you're trying to talk about issues of access to justice by human rights defenders, you must be having cases that really show that access to justice or the rule of law is under threat or attack. So when we have monitored and documented these cases, it becomes very difficult for someone to deny all these things. So that's what we really do. We support them. And therefore, even when we are going to seek for any change in the policies or provisions of the law, we must have these evidence-based advocacy papers that we present to them. But when they are also under serious threat, for example, he's been arrested, we have to provide legal representation, either the police who has been arrested or in the courts of law until the conclusion of that case. When he or she has been tortured, then we have to provide medical attention to that person, and including psychosocial support. In worst case scenario, if someone says, look, I'm under threat to the fact that they even know where I live, then we may to do some temporary relocation of that person.
Okay. Madam Hope Bagota, I'll give you the last word on this. Where will the commemorations be, and what should we look out for on December the 9th?
We're having this celebration at Munyonyo, as Robert earlier alluded to, and we shall be celebrating human rights defenders and also encouraging other Ugandans to also rise up and defend human rights. Like I said, human rights are not something that are abstract. They are for us, they are us, they're for everybody, and they're obligations. They're not mere ideologies that we aspire to.
Okay.
You know, they are key for us as human beings.
All right, Hope Bagota, Senior Human Rights Officer at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Many thanks, and many thanks to you too, Robert Kirenga, Executive Director at the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda, for the insight and, of course, bringing us up to speed with 9th December. We do wish you the very best, and congratulations to all those who've been selected as frontline actors when it comes to human rights defense. That will do it for the Tech Note, but do stay with us. When we return, we shall be going straight into the Kickstarter, and the discussion is going to delve into what is no doubt a very interesting topic of discussion on labor relations across the East African region. We shall be asking, why can't Martha Karua get herself a license as effectively as she, well, applies for it? Stay with us.